I want to share something very serious that I want everybody to pay attention to. My sister in Texas actually informed me today that a friend of hers has gone missing. And she shared a post that the Fort Worth Police Department put out with her friend's picture and the last known details about her whereabouts. So I'm going to share those details with you now. And then we're also going to share her photo and the details surrounding her disappearance on our Instagram and our Facebook. So we would really appreciate it if you would check that out. And of course, we'll keep you updated with more details as we learn them. Her name is Chelsea Lynn Williams Quinones. Yeah. And she was last seen on Wednesday, January 1st of 2020. I believe she was at her apartment or her home.
Yes.
And her car is actually still there at her residence. But her friends and family have not been able to get a hold of her. And her phone, as of Thursday, the next day, was no longer working. So as of the date of this recording, she's been missing for 3 days now.
Yes.
Is that right? And so police have put out a missing person alert. And so we are just asking everybody who listens to familiarize yourself with her face and to call the police if you have any information on her whereabouts. And like I said, as we learn new details, we'll keep you informed. I'm Brant.
I'm Rachel.
And this is Hot Cup,
Cold Case,
where every couple of weeks we sit down to share with you the two things that keep us up at night. And the first is a hot cup of caffeine, and the second is a cold case. But we have a very special episode for you tonight. We are bringing you our very first Listeners' Stories episode. And this is going to be an episode filled with stories that our listeners have submitted. And we have a special guest here with us in the blanket fort tonight. One of our listeners is going to be sharing her story with us live, and that is our good friend, Miss Rachel. Rachel, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, guys.
You want to say anything else?
I'm a sophomore.
In college.
In college. The week during exams, I passed out. I was at the gym and I was with my friend Porter, and I just look at him and I'm like, Porter. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm not doing so good. I like fell back and he caught me. So he sits me down and then he's like, here, drink water. And then I go, and then he like picks me up by my arms like how you pick up a child. And he like drags me to the garbage can. And I'm bent over this garbage can. I can't see anything. My vision's going. I have like, it's like cotton here or whatever whenever
yes,
you're starting to like pass out. And I'm like, it was so scary. And then I like woke up on the floor with a security guard, one of our like campus safety guys going, hello. I was like, hello.
Was it just stress?
It was, they said dehydration, and I didn't eat really anything the day before that because I had an exam. So, and I stressed myself out from that. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's also kind of ironic because you're also doing this weird thing with your boyfriend that I just don't get, where you like constantly go limp and just fall into his arms and yell dead body.
Yeah.
And it's like, expect him to catch your dead weight. Did you say it's fun?
It is.
Okay, Rachel weighs like 100 pounds maybe, but
so it's fun for her, but like all of your friends beg to differ because at random points during the day you'll just shout dead body and just go completely
I'll do it anywhere,
limp.
like the store. Like just catch me.
So if I had been your friend Porter, I would have just thought this is one of those moments. It's like I just thought this is normal.
Just playing again.
Yeah. I would have totally just thought this was normal. I'd be like, Rachel, this is not the time or the place.
Come on.
We're so glad that you're here with us tonight. We're back in Michigan now, back in the blanket fort after traveling to Texas and filming the last episode with our friends Marcy and Javier.
Yep.
And we celebrated New Year's with Kelsey.
We did. It was super fun.
I took a picture. I'm going to share it on our social media.
I need to approve it first, please. Because I think I'd already taken off my makeup at that point.
It is too much.
We are all old souls. We're 80 at heart. So to ring in the new year, Kelsey and I cross-stitched like 80-year-olds. For those of you who have never cross-stitched, you either have to hold it up like real close to your face because you have to count the squares, or, you gotta wear some readers. So I got this thing. It's like this necklace, and it has a magnifying glass on it and a light.
It is literally, let me describe this for our listeners. It's literally like a lanyard. It's connected to a giant magnifying glass. And it's just designed to rest on your chest. Like literally whoever invented this invented it for someone with a very sedentary lifestyle. It just rests on your bosom. And then you can like look through this giant magnifying glass resting on your chest and cross stitch.
And I started using it and I was like, Kelsey needs one if we're going to do this all night. So I went and got her one too.
And she loved it and used it.
Kelsey and I are in our sweats and our sweatshirts. We're eating like loads of junk food. I mean, loads. Like we just ate all night. Like everything you can imagine.
Yeah, we look like 80-year-olds, but we ate like teenagers that night.
Oh, for sure.
I don't know how I'm going to address both of you, like Rachel 1, Rachel 2. This could get very confusing for our listeners.
Queen and princess.
There you go.
When I'm talking to my wife, I'm going to call her Rach. When I'm talking to you, Rachel, you will be Rachel.
Sounds good.
Rach, you were told when you were in school that you were pronouncing your name wrong. And it's because you spell your name differently than our friend Rachel here.
Yes, I have mine Rachael, and Rachel, yours is just EL, right?
Right.
And it's up for debate which one is spelled right.
Well, Rachel's is the biblical way, and my mom just wanted to be difficult, apparently. So yeah, my third grade teacher asked me when she was calling roll, she was like, Raquel? I said, oh, I'm here, but my name's Rachel. She's like, no, it's spelled Raquel.
That's not your name anymore.
Yeah, I'm like, clearly it's not. There's not even a Q. And we were in a very ethnic school, so there were much harder names to pronounce than Rachel.
My name was never mispronounced as a kid because it's only one syllable and it's really hard. You can't really mispronounce Brant.
I have a friend named Shane, but he spells it Cheyne.
That's like Cheyenne.
It's just like Cheyenne, but it's missing an N. Okay. But he had this one substitute teacher and she was like, Chanye.
Chanye?
Yeah. Chanye. So his name in my phone is now Chanye. It's always been like that since he told me that story.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I have a friend in Texas named Coyote.
Oh, wow.
Coyote.
That's a fun name.
When I first met him, I thought his name was Coyote.
Uh-huh.
He's like, it's Coyote. And I never would have done what your teacher did and been like, no, it's Coyote. You know?
I know who does that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
When someone tells you how to pronounce their name, you just go with it. So let's get into these stories. I want to start by talking about the story your mom shared with us while we were in Texas, Rach.
Oh, yeah. It was really disturbing and scary.
So she said this happened to a sister of her coworker.
Right. Her really good friend. Yeah. So my mom's friend was at a department store and she was with her husband and he had walked off to go look at something else and she was looking at something. And this lady came up to her and just started like complimenting her and saying like how she's so beautiful. And then at one point she asked her to let her read like her fortune or her palm or something.
Yeah, I think she said she was a psychic or a palm reader or something.
And so my mom's friend wasn't like super into it and kind of thought it was a little strange, but was trying to be kind, you know, as most people would try to do. So the lady was like, well, here's my card. Just come with me. And she kept like waving this card in front of her.
She was like waving the card in front of this lady's face. Right?
Yeah, just like waving it in front of her.
Yeah.
I'm doing the motion to Rachel as if you guys can see me. But my mom's friend said that she started to get very, very lightheaded, like
Oh,
immediately,
wow.
and started to get very sick.
Like
And
suddenly nauseous.
yes, and the lady was like pulling her arm, like to get her to go with her, and so she was starting to become like a little out of it. Well, thankfully, her husband had rounded the corner at that time and was like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "No, like I'm not okay." And I think the lady at that point probably took off.
Yeah,
I
I
can't
think
really
she
remember.
took off when she saw the husband.
And so he ended up taking her to the ER because she was so sick. So she really believes that that lady was trying to like drug her and get
Yeah.
her to pass out.
She thinks the card was laced with some
That's-
type of drug because as soon as the woman started waving it in front of her face is when she became lightheaded. And so they think it might have been a human trafficking attempt.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why else it would be like that, especially like waving it in the face, like so close.
Right.
Yeah. She said it was really
had to
strange.
have been. It had to have been laced with something to like for human trafficking or whatever.
Yeah.
It's so
that is
disturbing.
So scary.
Just like in the middle of Walmart.
Yeah.
Just
That's how it happens in
out in the
broad
open.
daylight.
So disturbing.
Because if you were helping this woman who was obviously not well out to the parking lot, people would just assume you were her friend, like trying
Right.
to take her to
Right.
the doctor or the hospital. But your mom's friend doesn't believe that was what this woman had in mind for her at all.
Oh yeah, definitely not. It was definitely some foul play involved. Thankfully her husband was there.
Yeah, it's crazy to see how creative people can get with these stories. Like I've heard stories of elderly women asking, "Can you help me? Can you walk me to my car?" And they're in on the human sex trafficking.
That is
You
so
know,
scary.
and it's just like you think like you're doing them a good.
You feel like you can trust
deed.
somebody
Yeah.
who's old.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
Well,
but-
Rachel, you're going to Europe
yeah,
in
for a couple months.
less than a month.
Yeah.
And you were sharing something with us earlier at dinner about something you read about kidnappers or human traffickers and what they look for. And this article was written by somebody who interviewed kidnappers,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. They look for short or tiny, petite women mainly with long hair and walking alone, normally distracted by their cell phones. Basically, a description of me. And if they have like a hood, that's like a good thing because you can grab onto the hood or you can pull on the hair.
And so
And-
this is what kidnappers told this
Right. These are their
reporter.
victims that they look for. And I was like,
So
that's
scary.
basically a description of me.
Dear God.
So I cannot go anywhere alone.
You need to just shave your head before
I
you
know, I
travel
probably
abroad.
will.
Well, I have a story from one of our listeners to share with you guys.
I'm excited. Your nails are so long.
I know, I gotta trim them.
Brant Russell.
It's gross. Don't look at
I'm
them.
ashamed of you.
I'm ashamed.
Okay.
I'm
you should
ashamed.
be.
Both of you are
Don't
both
look at
looking at
me.
my nails now, and I'm like trying to hide them.
It's okay.
So ashamed.
Just
Don't even
typing with
look at me.
knuckles.
Yeah, you're disgusting. Tell your listener story.
The first one that I have to share with you tonight is from Nautical Mama 10. And this is what she says. Hi, guys. First of all, let me say I'm so obsessed with your podcast. I just freaking love it. I'm a huge fan and just love you guys. Oh,
Oh, thanks.
we love you too, Nautical Mama 10. She, or I'm assuming it's a she because of Mama. She says, my story happened this year. We had just moved to Cape May, New Jersey. I always have a level of nervousness every time we move because I'm unfamiliar with the area. My husband, because he's active duty, is always gone. So he'd left for a week-long school. Things were chaotic because I also homeschool, so all my children are with me 24/7. My husband was due to come home extremely late Friday night, and it was Thursday, so I felt like I wasn't going to make it. The kids were just being horrible, and I was exhausted. It was bedtime, and I had finally laid the baby down and got her asleep, so I was working on getting the 3 boys dressed for bed and their teeth brushed. I went to the kitchen to put the bottle on the kitchen counter. The boys are being so loud, and I thought I heard a noise at the front door. I stood there for a minute and didn't hear anything else, so assumed it was just a noise, no big deal. Then, all of a sudden, as my children are running back and forth loudly from their bedroom to the bathroom, I heard someone at my door. Only they didn't knock. The doorknob starts to rattle,
No.
and I literally freeze.
No.
Oh my gosh.
It couldn't have been more than 10 seconds. But in that 10 seconds, I had no idea how I was going to protect my children. I mean, I had seconds before this intruder was going to be inside my house. I had nothing in my hand but the baby bottle that I hadn't quite set down on the kitchen counter. For whatever reason, it didn't occur to me to grab a knife. I also couldn't figure out a way to quietly signal to my children to shut the crap up and hide. They were so loud and they wouldn't have heard me unless I shouted. I panicked and literally stood there frozen, unable to move. That's never happened to me before. I literally had no idea how I was going to deal with this situation. Oh, also my cell phone was on the charger in my bedroom.
Oh,
So
no.
I couldn't even call 911 without passing my children and leaving them vulnerable.
Whoa.
Suddenly, the front door swings open
No.
and in walks my husband.
I
Oh
would
my
have killed
gosh.
him.
All proud. He didn't tell me he was coming home early.
No one wants surprises, buddy.
He wanted to surprise me. I literally collapsed on the floor, completely weak, and just started crying.
Oh,
my
no.
He obviously didn't mean to terrify me, but I was. Super scary. So we've now settled in a bit more, and I'm more prepared. We now have some pepper spray located close to the front door.
Yeah, and he would have been pepper sprayed.
Oh,
This
my
is like one of those
goodness.
like military homecoming videos.
Oh my gosh.
He probably
Surprise.
walked in and she collapsed and started crying. And he's like, "Oh, she's happy to see me." And she's like, "I hate you. What is
Yes.
wrong with you?"
Without the cute music in the background,
Yeah.
like that sweet loving song, and the children come up and just pepper spray.
Oh my god, I would have
gosh.
killed you. No. Anyone
is
who
insane.
watches true crime, listens to true crime, there's just you can't surprise those people.
Yeah, I remember Jimmy Fallon sharing a story one night on one of his segments about, it was like a tweet from a girl who said that every night before she goes to bed, she just randomly shouts out into her empty apartment, "I see you," just in case anybody is there.
Oh my god. I would totally do something like that.
Like,
That's funny.
But what would you do if like someone was like, oh, okay, you know?
Should I just leave now?
Should I just leave now?
Or when you fall asleep?
Should I rob you first? Or oh god.
What do you want me to do now?
So like, where do we go from here?
Glad we got
That ruins
that
my
out of the
evening
way.
plans.
Well, thank you, Nautical Mama 10. That truly is a terrifying story. I'm
Yes.
glad that it wasn't a home intruder, but thinking that it was, those must have been the longest 10 seconds of her life. I can't imagine how helpless that must have felt, realizing all of her kids are being loud and her cell phone's in the other room and all she's armed with is a baby bottle. And even if she had remembered to grab a
Right,
knife.
and the guy might have a gun or something, so knife's
Yeah.
really not going to do much.
We try to protect our daughter from the concept of death. I mean, she's only 3, you know, but so she doesn't understand like what death is. So when we took her to see Frozen 2 for the 3rd time this past week in theaters, there's a scene where Kristoff is talking to Anna and he's like, "We will all eventually die." Like he says that to her and everybody like laughs because it's a very like funny moment. My daughter like starts laughing so loud in the theater and she goes, "Ha, ha, 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 we're all gonna die."
Like,
Oh my goodness.
I'm sure that every parent in that place thought there was something wrong with our family.
yes. God.
I can picture her doing that too.
Yeah.
Yes, you could. You
You can
know
hear her
her.
little voice, her little squeaky voice. "We're all gonna die."
Yeah, and then she's
It's like it's the worst thing a 3-year-old girl could say in the dark.
yes,
It's
and
the
then
stuff
laugh
of nightmares.
In public.
like this maniacal laugh after. I'm like, oh, please don't do that. You're terrifying me.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I have a story from a listener, and I'm probably really gonna mess this name up, but it's m.alexic14. I think I said that right? I don't know.
You're saying it wrong. It's actually Raquel.
Shut up.
Just refer to you as Raquel now.
Yes, please. All right, so m.alexic14 says, "Hello, love y'all's podcast. So my scary story is when I was maybe 9, and one night my parents left to go out for some dinner, and it was just us kids at home. My oldest brother was 13, and I had another older brother who was 12, and 2 little ones at home. There was a knock on the door, and it was an older man asking for my dad. Me being me, I tell him that my parents aren't home and I invite him in. Oh my God.
What a hospitable
9-year-old. Oh my gosh. This is my nightmare right now.
Offering him, like, you don't have anything to drink, or
Can I give you a snack?
Yeah.
We have fruit snacks.
Fruit snacks, dry cereal,
Can I introduce you to some goldfish?
Scooby snacks.
Oh my gosh. He seems like a nice man, and he says my dad owes him some money. I tell him, well, you can wait here for him. Oh my God. So the man spends like 30 minutes at the house.
Oh my God.
That's insane.
I remember at one point I was sitting on his lap.
I don't like where this
I
is going.
can't even keep going. I can't even. Oh my God. And he was asking me about my older brother who was in his room lifting weights.
That
Because
sounds
that's
like an
what
old-
all 13-year-old brothers do.
That sounds like an older brother move.
Yes.
My younger sister's out there with a strange man. I'm just in here working on my 13-year-old bod.
Oh my God.
He's probably like kissing his biceps.
Yeah, every single time, too. Like, 1001, 1002.
Oh my God. Although my big brother was only 13, he could have easily passed for a 17 or 18-year-old. In that moment, I just felt like I should lie and tell him that my brother is a grown-up and fights really well.
My brother's a black belt.
Oh my God. The man leaves abruptly after he says that he fights really well, and I feel weird now. So I fall asleep on the couch. My parents get home, hear the story. My dad's face goes white. He has a serious conversation with me about not letting strangers in because that man is a wanted child predator.
Oh my God. He was wanted?
Ugh. He says,
What?
I couldn't eat for weeks. I felt so sick that I let him in and was sitting on his lap. Thankfully,
Oh my God, yeah.
my brother was home. Well, that's my scary story.
That's terrifying.
Ugh.
That's insane. I mean, I don't know where this person's at in life now. I'm sure that they've kind of moved on, but it's still kind of like they think about it here and there. I feel like I think about it every single time I go to bed.
That's a terrifying story.
Yeah. Well, I actually have a story I want to share with you about a girl I went to high school with. She shared this story with me, and it's absolutely terrifying. This girl that I went to high school with was at a party one night, and she had stepped out of the party to go have a private conversation on her phone in her car. And as she's sitting in her car talking on the phone, she said she had like climbed into the back seat. I don't remember why she was back there, but she's back there and she happens to like look up through the back windshield, and she sees the shadow of a hooded man standing over the car talking to himself. She said she just screamed at the top of her lungs, and this hooded figure just takes off into the darkness and just flees.
Okay.
She shared this story with me, and what she didn't know is that I know who the hooded man was,
What?
because it was me.
There's the wheezy laugh, y'all.
It was me. And what makes this story even worse is that I was not trying at all to scare this girl.
To be a creeper?
Yeah. So here's how I ended up being somebody else's nightmare.
Do tell.
So I lived in a neighborhood with a lot of friends that I went to high school with. And occasionally I would go for walks at night. One night I was walking through the neighborhood. I'm wearing a hood up, because it's rather cold outside. I'm listening to a disc player, an actual portable CD player, because this is the early 2000s.
Did it have that anti-skip on it?
Yes, it had anti-skip technology.
Okay.
And
Gosh.
the way they marketed it is that this CD player could predict skips before they happened and prevent them. It was like some sort of
Way to make
science
more money.
fiction technology.
Okay.
I wandered down a street that a friend of mine lived on, and as I approached his house, I noticed that there were a ton of cars parked outside. And then I could hear music coming from in the house. You know, like when you can tell a party's going on because it's like boom,
Yeah,
and you can hear
yeah.
like people laughing and screaming.
That's a good beat right there.
Yes.
So I suddenly realized that my friend is having an absolute rager. And then it dawns on me that I'm not at the party. And I'm
That's
like,
rude.
well, who did he invite? And so I start walking closer and I start noticing some cars that appear to be familiar, but I can't really tell in the dark. Well, one thing that all of my friends and I had on the back of our car was a bumper sticker of our high school band because we were band nerds and very proud. And so I thought to myself, if I could make out the bumper sticker on the back of this car, I'll know for sure if these are all of my friends hanging out without me.
Oh no.
That's really
So
sad,
I
babe.
think you know where I'm going.
Yes.
So I walk up to one of the cars that I think I recognize, and I lean over the back windshield to look at this bumper sticker. And sure enough, it says the name of my high school band. And so at this point, I start like muttering to myself, and I'm like, these punks all hanging out without me. I'm going to kill them. And that is when I see something move on the other side of the glass.
God, so disturbing.
And I hear a blood-curdling scream come from inside the car. And that is when I proceeded to do the absolute creepiest thing I could have done in that moment, which is I just ran like off into the darkness.
She probably heard the, I'm gonna kill him. She
Brant!
And you know what? My CD player did not skip a beat all the way home.
Listen to that Durka music all the way home.
So did you ever figure out why you weren't invited?
I never did, but you know what? It could have been because I did creepy things like that.
Yeah, that's so weird. Gosh, that's so creepy, Brant. You better be glad she didn't have a gun.
I know, right?
It's Texas.
I know. I could have gotten
my
shot.
God.
You can't be leaning over people's cars in the middle of the night in your hoodie. What was I thinking? Well, Rachel, I am really looking forward to hearing your story about the scariest thing that has ever happened to you. So take it away.
So this is my story that actually happened to me, and I don't tell a lot of people this because I feel like people think that I'm lying, which I'm not because I was there for this. But it happened when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and it was a summer night, and we live out in the woods in the middle of nowhere. My sister and I, we shared a room on the 3rd floor, and we have a pond, so what we like to do is we like to open our windows up to hear the frogs and just like the crickets, it was really nice. A lot of people don't get to experience that, which I loved it. And my dad's always been very safe. When I was younger, he had a dream that I was kidnapped once. So he's always been very,
Oh, gosh.
yeah, safety's been his biggest thing, So he'll let us have our window open. We're on the 3rd floor, so we're like 30 feet up in the air.
Yeah.
And we have a screen. The window was up and then the blinds were down, but they were able so you could still see the sunlight, except it was night.
They
But
were
those
just letting the air pass through a little
Yeah,
bit. Yeah,
exactly. So in my room, there were 2 beds, one for me and one for my sister, obviously. My sister's 3 years older than me, so sometimes I would get scared or she would get scared, or we couldn't sleep, so we'd always hop into one of the other person's beds. Well, my sister's bed was up against this one wall, facing this one window, where my bed was underneath that window. Well, one night I couldn't sleep. I don't know why exactly, but I went to go sleep with her. And when you're laying in bed and all the lights are off, but your eyes adjust to see what's in the room. So
Right.
it's not completely dark. You can still kind of make out what's around you.
Shapes and
Right.
things. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm laying there. I still can't fall asleep. And all of a sudden, I look at my window and there is someone staring right at me.
What?
Yes.
Oh my God.
I kind of froze. I was like, there's no way someone's looking at me because I'm 30 feet up in the air.
Right.
There's no way someone can just be floating,
Mhm.
And you're
Um,
5,
I'm,
right?
Yeah, 5
Oh
or
my
6,
God.
somewhere around there.
And you see 2 eyes.
2 eyes.
To be clear. Okay.
Yep. And as I'm looking at this person, they weren't necessarily making eye contact with me yet, but I just saw these eyes staring through my room. As I tried to shake it off, maybe try to close my eyes, all of a sudden, I see this hand
No.
go right through my window and flick the blinds up.
No.
Oh my God.
And it was so terrifying because I have no idea how this happened because, like I said, I have a screen.
So that means the screen's gone.
Yes.
And you don't have like a balcony outside your window. It's
Right.
just like a
It's
window
just
to
straight
It's a
next
window.
sheer
Yeah.
wall
Yep.
down, right?
Yep. And what's below it is just, it's like gravel.
Oh my God.
There's nothing
Yeah.
to climb up.
Yep. Nothing
No
to
trees or
climb.
anything.
Exactly. I mean, there were around the perimeter, but nothing close to the house.
Oh my God.
So I'm looking at this guy as his hands are in my window as he's flicked the blinds up, and he's scanning the room, and all of a sudden we lock eye contact.
Oh my God. Oh
And we
my God.
stare at
Oh
each
my
other,
God.
and it felt like forever. I was freaking out. I didn't know what to do because, like, I was remaining calm, but on the inside, I was like, "What's going on right now?"
Yeah, I'm
you know?
30 years old and I don't know what to do.
Right.
You're 5.
Exactly. And I didn't know, do I wake up my sister? But I was like, my sister, she's more of a scaredy cat than I am. So I was like, I should not wake her up because, that's not
That'll only
gonna
make
end
the situation
yeah,
worse.
yeah. And then I was like, well, do I like go get my dad? But then I knew that if I did, that this person would see me leave the room.
Mm-hmm. And then
And-
you leave your sister vulnerable.
Right, exactly. And as of right now, I know that the screen is missing now. So he is complete easy access into my room.
Oh my God.
God.
And
The things that went through your little 5-year-old brain.
Is this all happening in like a matter of seconds?
This is all happening within like a minute.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it
That's
was-
crazy.
It was so creepy, and I could start to like make out his face, and he looked really sick. Like his eyes were sunken back in. He had pronounced cheekbones, and we were just looking at each other. And so I propped myself up, maybe thinking that he knows that I'm looking at him. And all of a sudden, he like closes the blinds and he leaves.
like,
Yeah.
How does
like,
he leave?
He
He
just
just-
kind of goes down.
you just see his head sink down
Yeah.
below the windowsill.
Yeah. And this was also the time that my brother and I watched Inspector Gadget. So that's kind of also what I'm
Oh,
thinking of
okay.
is, does this guy have really long legs or something? But I knew that Inspector Gadget was not a real person. You
I
know?
love how your
I
5-year-old
know.
mind
It's
works.
insane.
You're like, did I just see Inspector Gadget? Just the magic that
like a
5-year-olds.
drugged out
Yeah.
version of Inspector Gadget. God.
Another actor we lost
Oh my God.
to drugs.
Oh my God. The world is such a magical place for 5-year-olds.
I know. My
It's
imagination and
So if you hadn't moved to get in bed with your sister that night,
Mhm.
you would have been directly under this window?
Yes.
Oh no.
Yeah, I would have been directly under the window and I wouldn't have seen him because I like to sleep with my back against the wall normally.
Mhm.
Because my sister, she liked to sleep up against the wall because she was afraid snakes were going to climb up and grab her. Well, I was afraid to
Sounds about right.
Yeah. I was afraid to sleep next to the wall because I thought spiders would come down and bite me.
Yeah, that's a legitimate fear
Yeah.
right there.
Once again,
that's my fear.
Yeah.
I love the way 5-year-olds think.
30-year-olds, I still am like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. I would have lost my mind. I would have started screaming or just froze and
Mhm.
died. Like, just
Nautical
out of
Mama
pure
10.
shock. Yeah.
Go full
Yeah.
Nautical Mama.
Maybe I should have
Yeah.
just let him in like that.
Oh my god.
You want to come in?
Here, you
There's
want
an
some-
extra bed right here. I'm not sleeping
You're
in
like,
that
I
one."
see you.
Exactly. I guess I was a really logical thinker.
Yes.
I have no idea why, but even as a 5-year-old, I loved watching like Cold Case.
At 5?
At 5, my parents wouldn't let me watch it, but I would. Like, I would like crawl down my stairs and they would watch the show and I'd like sneak, I could like see through like the spindles. And it was
So,
really weird.
Do you think that this was a dream you had?
See,
Because
that's
you
kind
watched
of-
an episode of Cold Case?
But then what happens next seemed more realistic.
Okay.
So after the man left, there was another man that appeared back in my window, but he did not open the blinds at all. I could just see pretty much his eyes, but he looked like he had a bit of a bigger face. So I'm assuming he's a bit of a bigger guy.
And you could tell this is a different
Yes,
man?
this is a different man now. And I have no idea, again, where they came from. And he wasn't there for too long. We just made eye contact and then he was gone. So somehow I was able to go to bed after that.
Oh my gosh.
I was just like, wow, that was weird. So I just went to bed. And then the next day I came down for breakfast. And I told my dad, I said, Dad, there was a man outside my window last night. And he said, that's impossible, Rachel.
Right.
You're 30 feet up and guys can't climb up there. There's no trees, nothing. You can't hang off the roof or anything.
You're like, you obviously haven't seen
I
Inspector
was like,
Gadget.
oh my gosh. Where were you on family movie night? But later, my dad and I went outside that day and there was a ladder leading right up to my window.
Just propped up against the
Propped
house.
up against
my
the side of
God.
the house.
What did your dad have to say when he saw
I
that?
don't know. I can't remember this next part, so I'm not going to say this is for sure, but I think he probably played it off by saying like, oh, I put that up this morning, to not make me so scared. Like
Right.
some man broke into our house and got our ladder or whatever. And it was my dad's ladder.
So where would they have gotten the ladder?
Our garage doors did not work. So you could slide up, like you don't have to have a
okay.
code. So they could have easily gotten into there. And my dad, again, with safety, he would never,
Like, leave it
ever
open or
leave
anything?
something like that outside.
Oh my god.
Ever.
That is so scary.
That's
Yeah.
so disturbing.
Yeah.
So to
Was
this
the
day,
screen gone?
The
Or
screen
they
was
put it
back
back?
on,
Oh,
I
okay.
guess. Like the screen's still there and
God, it's so
it's
weird.
creepy. And I still live in that room today.
So what do you think those guys wanted?
I have no idea. When I've talked to my friends telling them about this story, a lot of people have said maybe it was a ghost, which
Uh-huh.
I never grew up believing in that. My parents didn't believe in them, so I never really believed in ghosts either.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, I don't really know. And then where did the ladder come from, So
It sounds like a drug thing to me.
Yeah.
Like, I would think maybe someone was trying to, like, break in for drug money since he looked sick.
Oh,
And
the sunken in eyes.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're in
like
the
an
middle.
addict.
Yeah, like you're in the middle of nowhere, like bold enough to like try to
Mhm.
break in.
Yeah, desperate for a fix.
Yeah.
right, and all lights are off.
I like
and
that
I think
theory.
it was, I don't know the time, but it could have been midnight. I mean, I was a night owl. Even now, I stay up so late. I mean, in the summer, I'd stay up. I mean, sometimes I'd like go in the closet, not gonna lie, and like play with my Barbies, So then I would go back to bed. So I mean, that's also where sometimes I couldn't fall asleep because I'd already be up all night playing with my Barbies or my baby dolls or something. So it probably was right around midnight. So it's not like it was like 9 o'clock,
Right.
I like how
right.
you were either playing with Barbies or watching Cold Case.
Yeah,
when I was like 5 years old.
Either one, whatever. Rain,
Whatever I felt
rain or
like that
shine.
night.
Yeah.
Barbie or murder.
Oh God.
My own version of Cold Case.
Yes, dear Lord.
Kim has
Oh,
been missing.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
Brant.
Well, speaking of ghosts, you said at dinner that you had a ghost story you wanted to share with us, and I told you to wait and save it for the podcast. But I'm always down for a good ghost story, so I'm excited to hear this. Is this a local ghost story?
Yeah. So this actually happened at the place I work at. I work at a banquet center, so it's mainly for weddings, pretty much. And this banquet center used to be a house.
Oh, okay.
So there used to be a family, I think a family of 5.
Like a large house?
It
Like-
was huge.
Okay.
Like this was like a mansion back then. It was
Oh,
a couple
okay.
hundred,
Okay.
maybe 300 years old, I believe.
Wow.
And then throughout the years after the homeowners passed away, it then became a country club. And then I think it just, through several owners, it's been passed on. And then is today now a banquet center for weddings and sports events and everything. And I was always very hesitant to work there because I heard a couple stories on it. But my sister, she used to work there when she was in high school, which my sister's older than me. So my sister's now, she quit the job. And after my sister quit, she like confirmed these stories.
Really?
Yes. And then I also had a friend in high school who was closing that night for a wedding. I think it was in the summer. And she said that she was going around making sure all the glasses were picked up, the tablecloths were in the bags, to take everything out to the dry cleaners. The bathrooms were clean. And she sees this man at the bar. And she asks him, "Sir, what are you doing here? I'm sorry, we're closed. Everyone's gone home. The wedding's over. Ended about an hour ago. Is there anything I can help you with?" And she didn't see his face, but he ignored her because she's kind of behind him. And she walked up to him and said, "Sir, I'm sorry, you're going to have to leave. Do you have a ride?" And he turned around and he looked at her and smiled. But when he looked at her, there was something wrong with his face. His face looked a little distorted. And his teeth were rotted out, and he looked very mangy, and he did not look like he came from a wedding. He was wearing a suit, but it was ratted up and wrinkled and dirty. So she was confused, and when he smiled at her, she got extremely scared. So she walked away, and she went to go find the manager. And they went to go look for him, and he's not at the bar anymore. Then they looked around, they couldn't find him, so they assumed that he left.
Right.
And if he was still there, that's the cleaning lady's problem. So,
oh, God. That's great.
Wow, it sounds like
She's
it
out
sucks
of
to be
there.
a cleaning lady for this company.
Oh, girl,
well, you clean
good
at like
Lord.
4 a.m, so
Should we tell the cleaning lady?
yeah. We never even knew.
God.
But so after I think a week passed, and her next shift, she went to go ask the boss and said, "What's up with the history in this place? There was a weird man the other night, and he looked very out of place. And so I'm wondering what's up with this." And so the boss ended up saying that when this was a house, there was a husband, a wife, and I believe 3 children. And over time, the husband became mentally ill. But back then, they didn't really know that this was a mental illness. The wife wanted a divorce, and they had another house as well. And she threatened, "I'm going to go live there. You stay here." And the husband did not want his wife and children to leave him. So what he ended up doing was tried to kill his 3 children and his wife in their sleep.
What?
And I believe he got away with it. So he killed them, and then he killed himself after that in this house. And after the boss had told my friend this story, she said, "Can I see a picture of the family?" And when he showed a picture of the family, who were the original owners of this banquet center,
No.
it was the man that was at the bar.
No.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's so weird.
Yeah.
No.
And my sister had told me that when she was working there, she remembers that she was going to the bathroom, and one of her chores that night was to just tidy it up throughout the night. And the lights just automatically turned off, and the doors to the stall started slamming shut. And then the lights turned on, and she had no idea where that came from because there was no one else in the bathroom. And my sister and I, we don't believe in ghosts, so she just kind of shook it off and thought that this was a weird experience. I have no idea how she was not, like,
freaking
really
out.
concerned about that.
No, Rach and I have already talked about, we turn into Tyler Perry's Medea when we're scared.
Oh.
We just get super loud and super spiritual. We're like, "In Jesus' name,
Yeah, Jesus
you
loves me.
stop it
That's
right
what
now."
That's what I'll sing.
Yes.
I'll start singing Jesus Loves Me.
That's when my daughter is like, "We're all gonna die."
Oh, gosh.
The evil laugh. So now I actually currently work there. Somehow these ghost stories did not scare me away. I am that desperate for money. I am so poor. So I worked there, and they told me to grab the cloths downstairs. And they say that the basement is what's haunted, really. Everyone knows you do not go in the basement alone.
Oh, cool.
Like,
So they let you go by yourself?
yes. They were
that's
like,
awesome.
"Rachel, go get the cloths." And I was like, "Can someone go with me?" And my boss, I think he goes down there alone. And this is the same boss as before that my friend had and my sister had. And I don't think he was going to put up with my "I'm scared" kind of crap thing. Like, he didn't want to have to deal with that. So he's like, "Just go get the cloth." So I went down there, and I wasn't too afraid because, again, I haven't had any experiences with them. So I figured I don't really have anything to be worried about. And all of a sudden, I get down to the final step, and I could not breathe, and it felt like someone was putting a heavy weight on my chest. And at first I'm thinking, okay, something's going on. Like, this has nothing to do with me being in the basement. It's just my breathing.
Right.
And all of a sudden I'm going down this hallway, and it's this long, creepy hallway with low ceilings too. And I am like starting to like, it really did feel like a horror movie. I started to get a little dizzy, and I like really could not breathe. And I was just like trying to get the cloths and get out. And I was trying to like speed it up, but because I wasn't feeling good, I couldn't like pick up the pace. So I grabbed the cloths. I feel like I'm still running short of breath. And all of a sudden I go upstairs, and I feel like I'm about to collapse. And like my friend had come down, and he saw me like about to just faint, I guess. And he like took me upstairs, and I felt perfectly fine after that. And I had told my friends that, and I said, oh, my chest felt heavy. I couldn't see very well. A lot of things looked blurry. And they were like, oh, well, you might have experienced the ghost, because that's what happens when you encounter a ghost.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
And how dare they make you go down there by yourself?
I know.
That's wrong.
I mean, the managers won't go down there alone either.
Yeah, that's
but
ridiculous.
our boss is just like, go get the towels or the cloth. So I was like, okay.
No, like, you go get them, Andrew. Go do what you want to do,
Yeah.
buddy. God.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up our first listener story episode. This was so much fun, and we're so excited that we were able to do it. We're hoping to bring you another episode like this soon. We couldn't get to all of them today, but we would love to hear more from you. So if you have any crazy encounters or want to share a story with us, you can email us at hotcupcoldcasepodcast@gmail.com, or you can DM us on Facebook and Instagram. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. We are so excited for 2020 with you guys, and we can't wait to bring you more.
Well, Rachel, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah.
I look forward to having you back on the show sometime again when you get back from your trip to Europe.
Definitely.
Ooh,
Be safe out there.
Thank you.
You'll have to tell us all about it.
Of course I will.
On the next episode.
Yes.
We're excited.
Tell us all about your crazy adventures in Europe.
I will.
And until then, if you ever need your mug filled,
or your spine chilled,
this is Hot Cup
Cold Case. Well, hold on. I'm still
got a
chewing.
mouthful of Mike and Ike.
While you buy them in here, we're going to Sam's tomorrow and buying the big bag.
My mother-in-law, Rachel's mom, was telling me that for Christmas somebody got her a Secret Santa gift from Sam's.
It was a couple of years ago, but
oh, was it a couple of years ago? And it was just like a giant economy-sized bin of like Tylenol or Advil.
Yes, like what a jerk though. Like, who buys that for a Secret Santa
Yeah,
gift?
like this isn't. It wasn't a white elephant gift exchange. It was like this was bought specifically for somebody. It's almost like, here, you look like you're in pain a lot.
Like, who
Hopefully
does
you get
that?
this one. Yeah. Oh my goodness.